In today's video, I'm going to talk to you a little bit about women's history and patchwork and how those two things link together. Hello, patchwork friends. Well, gosh, I don't know if I feel like we're in a history class or not, but hopefully you all are aware that March is Women's History Month. So I thought today would be a perfect opportunity for me to talk a little bit about Blackwood Cottage, but here's what I'm going to do. I'm going to say goodbye to Blackwood Cottage from a standpoint of marketing it, because as we speak, Wilmington Prince has done a magnificent job of seeing that this is in most of the retail stores or on its way to those retail stores. And hopefully all of you then will have an opportunity to get your fabrics and get working on them. In the midst of thinking about this and moving ahead to the next fabric collection I'll be working on, it occurred to me that with this being Women's History Month, it was a perfect opportunity for me to talk to you about this industry and why the industry is so important to me and has been such an integral part of my life. As I started thinking about this, I realized I have taught in all 50 states in the U.S. I have also had the luxury of being able to teach in 6 of the 7 continents. So think about that. Now, the only one I've not been to is Antarctica, and I was thinking about this earlier. I've got some goats. If I could teach them to pull a sled, I might make it to Antarctica before I give up. You just never know. And you think about all those miles and all of that time spent in this industry, there's a lot I have learned about the industry. Women are certainly an integral part of this business. I have a good friend, or had a good friend, Mary Ellen Hopkins, who made this comment to me one time. We were talking about women and sewing machines, and she said that had there been a plug in the back of a covered wagon, a woman would have plugged in a sewing machine. And that tells us the details and the things that women went to create quilts. And here we are today in this time frame. Everything in the world is available to us. We have all the luxury of the world in our sewing machines and our lights and our thises and our that's. And in creating patchwork, I think sometimes we forget why we're doing it. Some of us do it as a business. Most of the people I encounter, men or women, are doing this as a hobby, a passion, an art form, a whatever. But what I have learned in all my years of researching women's history, in working in the fabric industry, is that those quilts you're making mean a lot more than you think they do. Because lots of you, and I hear this from my students all the time, where someone will say, well, it's just a little thing I did, and I'm sure it's got mistakes, and blah, blah, and on you go. I guarantee you the person that ends up with that quilt when you're no longer here is probably not going to be remotely concerned about the fact that maybe one point is missing or something was a little askew. So spend a little bit of time thinking about what your legacy is going to be as you make your quilts. I don't know if mine's a legacy or a burden for the one who has to clean up after me, because I have loads and loads and loads of quilts, but I have also given away lots and lots and lots of quilts, and will continue to do so, because half the joy of making them is to give them to someone. So don't lose sight of the fact that those who come after you are going to be the ones that are going to probably put the highest value on that project you're making. And because I've talked to you about it being Women's History Month, and I've done so much work in regard to women's history, I couldn't resist the urge to be a little philosophical. And I want to read something to you that I think kind of says it all, with it being Women's History Month and also about patchwork. And the title of this is called The Patchwork Quilt. And it goes, of all the things a woman's hands have made, the quilt so lightly thrown across her bed, the quilt that keeps her loved ones warm, is woven of her love of dreams and thread. When I have spoken to you of its beauty, a mere hodgepodge of calico, you said, a necessity of homely fashioning, just a covering made of cloth and thread. I knew you'd miss the message hidden there by hands that fashioned quilts so long ago. Ambition and assurance are the patches, and the stitches of a quilt are love, I know. I think a quilt is something very real, a message of creation wrought in flame. With grief and laughter sewn into its patches, I see beyond the shadows, dream and aim. And that was written by Carrie Hall in Romance of the Patchwork Quilt. And it reminds me of how many times I have seen quilts given as a congratulatory thing. Perhaps someone graduated from school, someone got married, someone did this. I've also seen them used as wonderful sympathy quilts in memory of someone, or just so many ways that quilts have been woven into men and women's lives that I truly think this is a time, and especially because it's Women's History Month, for you to think about that and pat yourself on the back. Make a quilt just for the fun of making a quilt. The kinds of quilts that I work on lots of times are driven by the job at hand, but I never lose sight of the fact that when I'm making a quilt, someone's going to hold that quilt one of these days. And they're probably going, God, why'd she make so many? But I would like for you to think a little bit more about this, do a little bit of studying up on Women's History Month and what it's all about and why we're lucky enough to be in this generation where the women that came before us did the hard work so that we can vote, we can own our own businesses, we can do anything. And that is incredibly important to me. So I'm going to close with one wonderful little poem that I ran across about a woman's worth. I use this in one of my books as a dedication to my mother who has passed away, and this is how this goes. They talk about a woman's sphere as though it had a limit. There's not a place in earth or heaven, there's not a task to mankind given, there's not a blessing or a woe, there's not a whispered yes or no. There's not a life or death or birth that has a feather's weight of worth without a woman in it. And that author is unknown. Have a great day. Make some memories. See you later.